has been between 1% and 5%.
Right.
So I can't be any clearer than that, I think.
Okay.
It's
no,
very
I'm just
clear.
not quite clear
what
what you do if Ofgem doesn't cut the prices. But let me move on. You've explained your policy.
That's a matter for Ofgem.
No, I understand that, but I'm asking what would you do? But anyway, let me move on, because we are short of time. I want to move on the more general position. 2 years ago, Labour had a 9-point lead in the poll of polls. A year ago, that was down to 5 points. That's been whittled down over the past 12 months, and you're now basically nip and tuck with the Tories. The Tories may even be 1 point ahead. Is Labour now coming from behind in this election?
Look, I think it is really positive that where we were in 2010, in terms of having lost that election and lost it badly, to where we are today. We have been saying consistently that, look, this election is going to be hard fought, and we are not complacent about that at all. But the truth is, we are now we are in touching distance of winning this election, and we're going to fight for every vote. And I think it's Cameron who should be worried, because despite 5 years of being in control, he hasn't been able to demonstrate that he is able to win the trust of the British people. Now,
we know, just finally, you pledged to abolish what you call the spare bedroom tax. After last week's photo op, can we take it that you'll also rule out the spare kitchen tax?
Well, do you know, I wondered if this programme was going to go into the realms of through the keyhole. Look, I think people are interested in, you know, what is on offer from the different politicians, and we're very clear about where we stand. We're not against, you know, kitchens, but what we are in favour of making sure that we have an economy that works for working people, because that's the only way that we can succeed as a country. And I'd be very happy to come and have a look at your kitchen, Andrew.
Yeah,
sometime.
You are welcome for a cup of tea at any time, and if it's suitable in the day, even a glass of blue, none. But you didn't have to take the last question quite so seriously. Thank you, Caroline Flint. Now, Liberal Democrats, or what's left of them, have been gathering at the party's spring conference in Liverpool over the weekend. The latest polls suggest the party's engaged in a fight for 4th place with the Greens, and set to lose a raft of seats on May the 7th. But senior party figures are more optimistic. They say it'd be a mistake to write off the Lib Dems just yet. Davey is the Energy and Climate Change Secretary. He joins me now from Liverpool. Welcome, Mr. Davey. Energy companies have passed on only a fraction of the fall in wholesale energy prices in cuts in our fuel bills. Why shouldn't Ofgem have the power to force them to cut their prices?
Well, first of all, because we've introduced huge amounts of more competition, people can cut their bills. If the average person switches today, they can save £200 a year. And if you look at the Best Buy tables, the fixed tariff deals have gone down by over £100 in the last year. So I'm afraid Caroline and the Labour Party, again, completely, their energy policy is in shambles.
Hold on, Mr. David, let me just give you some figures here.
No, this is really important.
No, because independent
competition authority.
I'm talking about the big 6 energy companies. They're the ones that dominate our market. In the past year alone, wholesale gas prices have fallen by 22%, electricity by 17%. But the typical gas bill is down by under 5%. Electricity bills are not down at all. So why shouldn't Ofgem be able to force them to pass on the wholesale price cuts?
Well, first of all, I'll go repeat myself because it's really important. Competition is working. People can cut their bills today if they're fed up with their energy companies not passing on the cost.
Well, they haven't passed on the cost. Why not?
Well, if you listen, Andrew, we've set up the independent competition watchdog. They are now doing the biggest ever investigation into the energy markets, something that Ed Miliband, when he was Energy Secretary, failed to support 3 times. And this independent competition watchdog will report later this year. Labour ought to, if they're responsible, wait to the findings of the most detailed review of energy markets ever to see if there is problems in competition. We've done our best in government to really increase competition. We now have 22 companies competing with the Big 6. The Big 6 have lost huge amounts of customers, millions of customers. They've seen their share shrink by over 10% thanks to the policies we've introduced. That's giving people real choice. They can cut their energy bills, and energy bills are coming down. And one of the arithmetical problems with your question, Andrew, is that I will finish on this, wholesale gas prices make up less than half the bill. So arithmetically, they wouldn't go down by the same amount, would they?
All right, well, that's fine. Wholesale gas prices are just under 50% of the whole bill. They've fallen by 22% in the past year alone. So why haven't our gas bills fallen by about 10% from the Big 6? They haven't, and you've allowed them not to do it.
Well, first of all, people can save far more than the reduction in wholesale costs by switching. We've encouraged that. We've made switching easier. We've made it faster. I got the big six in and said it's outrageous that it takes 5 to 6 weeks for people to be able to switch. We've now halved it, and I want to go even further. So we're really making it easier for people to get the benefits of lower energy bills by being able to switch. Right. But let me take your point on again. You've already admitted, you've already halved your amount in this interview. You said it was 20%. You've now admitted it's 10%. Let me also explain that there are other pressures in the bill which are going the other way.
The wholesale gas prices are down 22%.
For the first time, you've actually faced the arithmetical logic, and I'm applauding your realisation there's basic maths involved.
OK, we'll move on. Tim Farron, till recently your party's president, says the Liberal Democrats deserve only 2 out of 10 for their handling of the coalition. Do you agree?
I think we've done a huge service to the country in making sure we've had stable government to take some of the most difficult decisions any government's had to take in peacetime.
So do you deserve more than 2 out of 10?
Absolutely. Because we have taken tough decisions, we have a stronger economy and a fairer society. Liberal Democrats have shown that we can be trusted on the economy. We've also shown that we can prevent the Conservatives taking our country to the right by the fact that it's been the Liberal Democrat policy of the personal income tax going up to over 10,000. That's taken 3 million low paid out of income tax. Does anyone seriously think that would have happened if the Conservatives had been in power? David Cameron, the leadership election, said that was impossible. They wanted inheritance tax cuts for millionaires. We stopped that. So by being in government, Liberal Democrats have ensured not only an economic recovery, making sure there are millions more in work, but we've also made sure that the people on lower incomes are looked after.
Ed Miliband's under some pressure to rule out any kind of post-election arrangement with the SNP. Do you rule it out?
Listen, we are talking here at Liverpool about how we managed to get over our Liberal Democrat message of a stronger economy and a fairer society.
I understand that. Do you rule out an arrangement with the SNP?
And if we... What we've always said about the situation, which is the most likely situation, when no party actually wins the election, has a majority of seats, that we will talk to the party with the largest number of seats. That's our constitutional duty. We performed that last time. We spoke to the Conservatives because they had the largest number of seats. We couldn't have performed a stable majority.
I understand that. I'm not asking you about that, Mr. Davey. I'm asking you, as part of any arrangement, would you rule out dealing with the SNP?
But Andrew, the reason I give you the example of how we behaved in 2010 is A, because we showed we would perform our constitutional duty and form a stable majority government, which is what the country needs when it has to take difficult decisions. We did that last time. We do the same again, starting with whoever is the largest party. I can't be clearer than that.
Well, I can't second guess. Because it may well be that two parties alone will not have an overall majority or a working majority the way you had after 2010. You may need more. It may also require the SNP, and I'm asking you if you rule it out. Vince Cable says it's, quote, virtually inconceivable to have the SNP involved. We just don't see how it could happen. Do you agree?
Well, the reason I think why Vince said that was because the SNP have made it clear they don't want to do a coalition here in Westminster. So if the other party doesn't want to do a coalition, a bit like Labour last time, right. Labour weren't really interested in doing a coalition with us, then it takes two to tango, Andrew, as you know.
Your party's been caught in yet another funding scandal. I mean, are you so desperate for funds that you advise donors how to get round the law, and that a mere £7,500 buys you access to the very top of the party? It's pretty pathetic, isn't it?
Unlike you, Andrew, I don't judge before the investigations happen. The Electoral Commission is looking at it, as you well know, and I'm not going to prejudge the Electoral Commission's investigation. What I will say about party finance, Liberal Democrats for many years and in this coalition and in this Parliament have led the calls and led the action on trying to reform party political finance.
You haven't cleaned up your own act. It's quite clear from the Telegraph sting. You haven't cleaned up your own act.
No, you're again making the very bad mistake, which you shouldn't really do, of prejudging the investigation by the Electoral Commission. That's very bad.
Pretty solid evidence in the media, Mr. Davey, of wrongdoing.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm afraid there's a principle in law in Britain that you're innocent until proven guilty. So I'm going to wait for an investigation. Thank you very much, Andrew. What I will say is Liberal Democrats have championed the case for party political reform. It's outrageous that the Tories still want to have large donations from individuals. We know why, because that's where they get their benefits from, the richest people in our country. And Labour won't actually face up to reform because they get huge amounts from the trade unions. Liberal Democrats continue to, and have in this Parliament, to push the case for reforming political finance. I think it's about time too other parties join the Liberal Democrats to make sure we can really clean up politics.
In your 2010 manifesto, you were the only main party to promise a referendum in out on Europe, provided there was a fundamental change in our relationship, if there was treaty change. Will that be in the next manifesto as well?
Yes.
So you'll retain referendum, but only if there's major treaty change. That remains party policy.
Yeah, well, more than that, we actually legislated for it. If you remember, in this Parliament, working with Conservatives, we passed legislation to say that there should be a referendum if there's a major change in the constitutional arrangement
and that remains
between
policy.
Britain and the European Union. I think that, yeah, it is, yeah.
Okay, that's fine, good. Thank you for clarifying that. In 2012, you also said it would be, quote, reckless and unwise to rule out joining the euro. Do you still think that today, or were you being reckless and unwise?
Well, one learns from the evidence, and the evidence at the moment is the euro has huge problems and needs some serious changes.
So would you rule out joining it for the foreseeable future?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we've got to see reform. Until we've seen that reform, it's an academic question which we very much believe we shouldn't look at.
Now, around twice as many people now think that man has made contact with aliens and that the moon landings were faked than are going to support the Lib Dems at the election. Are you looking forward to a generation in the political wilderness?
No, very simply, Andrew, because those of us who have been out knocking on doors in Liberal Democrat held seats, which there are 57, and the seats that we hope to win, and there's quite a few of those actually, we're getting a much better response from people on the doorstep than the polls would suggest. Partly because of our record in government of delivering on the health service, on education, and a stronger economy and a fairer society, but also because of the proposals we're making. So this weekend, for example, I talked about our 5 green laws to build on our strong environmental record in government. This government would not have a good environmental record if Liberal Democrats weren't in it. We know we can't trust the Conservatives with the environment. We've shown we can be trusted.
If you lose your seat in this election, and some people think you might, would you accept a seat in the Lords?
Andrew, I'm fighting every day with my team.
No, I know you are, but if you lose, would you accept a seat in the Lords?
I'm re-elected, that I'm re-elected in Kingston and Surbiton. We get lots of Liberal Democrat MPs elected.
But if you don't win, would you accept a seat in the Lords?
Good hypothetical question. The real question that's on people's minds is who's going to form the next government. And if you have more Liberal Democrat MPs in there, you can prevent the Tories taking the country to the right, as we've shown we've done in this Parliament. And if the Labour was the largest party, we are the best insurance policy to stop Labour ruining the country. The real question you should be asking some of my other colleagues is people like George Osborne. George Osborne today has failed to rule out a coalition between UKIP
I need
and the
an interview with him.
I think that is really worrying.
Can I just ask you this very briefly? You've pledged, you said that the Lib Dems would block any Labour cut in tuition fees. So let me just get this right, given your record on this. Your position now is vote Lib Dem to guarantee tuition fees won't go down.
Well, the tuition fee regime we have now is very different from the one we inherited from the Labour Party. For example, it's much fairer because people, when they first graduate, only pay a much smaller amount every week and every month. Moreover, after 30 years, it's written off. And finally, for the graduates who are on better salaries, they pay more.
So
and that's why I disagree with Labour's policy, because they want to give the big benefits to the richer graduates. That seems odd.
So you guarantee they won't go down?
I've lost my earpiece, so you'll have to excuse me.
All right, well, I'll use that then as an opportunity. We've run out of time, but I thank you. Thanks for bearing.
I've got it back.
Thanks for bearing with the earpiece. Thank you. Now, it's just gone 11:35. You're watching the Sunday Politics. We say goodbye to viewers in Scotland who leave us now for Sunday Politics Scotland. Coming up here in 20 minutes, the week ahead. First, though, the Sunday Politics, where you are.
Hello and welcome from us. Coming up a little bit later, with barely 2 months to go, they don't have much relevance in London, not yet at least, but could UKIP plant a flag just outside the capital's borders? With me this week, David Lammy, Labour MP for Tottenham, and Nick Dubois, Conservative MP for Enfield North. Welcome to you both. And let's kick off a quick word about Wednesday's budget and what you want to see ahead of this election. A political budget, presumably, Nick Dubois.
Well, I want to see a budget that's going to help constituents, and that means building on our growth record of creating jobs. So any measures to make it better for jobs to be created, reducing taxes. I'm a low tax Tory. That's what I like to do. So I'd like a focus to be on that, and of course continued infrastructure investment.
Cut taxes? What, just before an election? What will that look like when there are all the spending cuts that you've put in as well?
What I was actually saying is I'm very happy to see taxes reduced, for example, on businesses, the employment tax, employers' national insurance. Already that's having a material effect in increasing the jobs. You know, unemployment's down in my constituency by 43%, much more to do there.
You can't say fairer than that, can you, just before an election, if he produces some tax cuts to ease the financial burden on people?
Well, look, on their analysis, which is the deficit, we've had more borrowing since any Labour government, 1900. This